Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 3, coming to you live from the Kyalami Grand Prix circuits, coming to you from Midrand in Gauteng, South Africa. This is our home round for the series. So most of the drivers being from South Africa. This is the round that they've been waiting for. Don't mind the rain in the background. It is currently clear skies. This is just the background for typical Joburg weather, as our South Africans call it. We can have all 4 seasons in one day, but today will not be one of those days. We will have clear skies. And of course, this is round 3 of the championship. Next week will be followed by Silverstone, then Nürburgring, then Spa, then Suzuka, then Zandvoort, Montreal, and Monza. Points for this series, we have points for both races. They are both equal, so P1 for both races would get you 25 points, 18 for second, 15 for third, 12 for fourth, 10 for fifth, 8 for sixth, 6 for seventh, 4 for eighth, 2 for ninth, and 1 point for 10th. There are 2 points available for pole position, and there are 2 points available for both races fast laps. Current standings coming into this round. We have Gert Bierkes in first place on 110 points from Jandre Duppenal. In second place, 61 points, tied on 61 points with Jandre de Toy. Although I think he has slightly higher points or got there first, so it's putting him in second. And the standings for the rest of the drivers. Sean Olivier is in fourth, Peter Murray fifth, Julian Brains in sixth, Stanton Augustus in seventh, Timo Smit eighth, Peter Geldernees in 9th, Dinesh Singh in 10th, Andre Hildebrandt in 11th, Marius van Dijk 12th, Stan Bezuidenhout 13th, Monet Deploy in 14th, Sean Johnson 15th, Rian van der Westhuizen in 16th, Monet de Toy 17th, and Christian Labas in 18th. That is our top 18 drivers. And just a reminder that we do have a pro and a veterans class. So we have color-coded it, so the drivers that have red next to the name will be pro drivers, the drivers with yellow next to the name will be veteran drivers. They both compete for the overall championship, but the veteran drivers will also be competing for their own championship. Alright, I believe qualifying is now live, so we can transfer over to qualifying.
Good evening, Dennis.
Good evening, Sean. How are you this evening?
Good, except if I remember to plug the cable back in again.
Well, welcome, Sean. I actually haven't introduced myself. I'm your commentator, Dennis Mitchell, and as you can hear, I'm joined once again by Sean Woodgate. So, good to have you back, Sean.
Yeah, what fun it's going to be at Kyalami, home track for many. And certainly when you went through the standings and the points, it looked a lot more bleak than what it does right now. So hopefully a dry race. But then again, we all know Kyalami, with its late afternoon thunderstorms, it could be changing conditions. Who knows?
Yes, anything is possible at Kyalami. We have all 4 seasons in one day, but hopefully today remains just one of those seasons, the sunny one.
Yeah. So.
Right, currently watching Chris Collison heading out on a lap. He'll be the first driver that we get to follow. So perhaps we can do an onboard with Chris. Good to have Chris. Oops, I've clicked on the wrong driver. Apologies for that. Let's go back to Chris. Good to have Chris back in the championship. He's obviously been away and very busy with other championships, so thankfully he's joined again and looking very rapid as always.
And just to the layout of Kyalami for the traditionals that knew it, and it's changed over the years. The bit they're going through now is between Barbecue and Sunset into Sunset Corner. What is the left-hander is Clubhouse Bend. There's a short straight after that before they go through the S's. There's the straight bit. It's a left-right combination, quite tricky because the second bit is slightly off camber. Then up the hill to what's a blind corner. It's a double apex corner, Leeuwkop. Left-hand corner, you'll see the apex drift a little bit out and then apex it again. And there the apex a second time. Thanks, Chris, for doing, as I said, the corner does run, then they run as wide as possible before sweeping through the bottom of the mine shaft and into the crocodiles. Right-hander, it then sweeps slightly to the left and then they get through the Cheetah and back to Ingwe, which is the start of the pit straight. Once again, the pit straight has the kink in it. It's marked as a corner, but you'll see it's a very slight change of direction to the right. And many, many years ago, there used to be the total boma in front of the car as it's running there now, until the World Superbikes came here and Carl Fogarty said, you realize that that kink is the fastest point for superbikes on the circuit. We have a runoff of about 6 foot, then a cement wall, and then a great big hill in front of us. So that was changed for safety reasons, and subsequent to that, Kyalami changed ownership to the current owners, and that changed the way that it ran out of the kink up to barbecue. That was different to what it is now, so they extended that and brought back some of the old names, like Crowthorne and Yuxkay and Barbecue. Those were not in the old configuration prior to this one, but it's nice to have the old names back again.
Yeah, it certainly does bring back the nostalgia hearing the old names.
Nice wide circuit, but believe it or not, even though it's so wide, the guys say there's a very narrow racing line that the guys tend to hug to. So if you go off the racing line, the chances are you're going to be into the marbles and the grip is going to be reduced. So you've got to get it really right quite early to make it work.
So Gerrit coming across the line now, but his lap time looked like it didn't count, so possibly taking a off-track excursion somewhere.
Track limits, of course, get looked at as well.
The driver that's joined as well. We have Wessel Viljoen back on track, so good to have Wessel joining us again. We have a couple of drivers actually haven't driven with us in a while, so good to have Wessel. We have Pieter Geldenes that's back with us. Arjen Belder, he's a new driver, so welcome Arjen. Good to have you with us.
Always nice to have new faces or new riders in the lineup. And Kyalami, of course, a lot of the guys that race Formula One proper nowadays would like to have the race come back to South Africa, but the logistics and everything involved with that, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but certainly a very daunting task to get Kyalami back to South Africa. But I, for one, would love to see them back here again.
Yeah, from what I know, Kyalami is currently graded as a B circuit, which means it can hold anything other than Formula One. That includes MotoGP. But in order for it to hold Formula One, they would have to do some circuit renovations, and I think that is going to be quite expensive. And also the nature of the terrain around it, it's very difficult for them to create the kind of safety that they would need to for Formula One.
And if you also look at all the accommodation that they provide for the drivers at such an event, there's not that much space available at Kyalami. Alternatively, they could probably use the space between the front straight to the kink and the straight between Barbecue and Sunset, and with a bit of imagination put all those trucks in there. But yes, certainly a lot of thought will have to go into the concept of Kyalami becoming a Formula One circuit again.
So Arjen comes across the line. He does improve his time. A 1:46.822 puts him up to 8th place currently. At the moment in provisional pole we have Gerrit Beerkes, who's sitting in the pits probably having a cup of tea at the moment because it's just been cut down. He was 6 tenths faster. He's now 0.4 faster than Jean-Louis du Toit. So Jean-Louis du Toit, having just come across the line, he's now onto another flying lap. Chris Collison currently in 3rd place, 0.8 off, and Sean Olivier only 0.2 shy of that. So as we see a slight error there, perhaps we can go on board or go to a lap with Sean, although it's not his personal best in sector 1. Let's see if he can improve on the rest of the lap.
A little bit of a slide out of the S.
Drivers are starting to join, so hopefully we'll have higher numbers than we did the previous round. Previous round, I think, was, apart from it being a daunting track that not everyone was prepared to drive, it was just other sporting events happening in the world, so we had lowish numbers. So our numbers should be closer to 20 again, hopefully once everything gets going. So it is quite a long qualifying session, 20 minutes left to go, so we should have a few more drivers join. As we see Sean get out of shape there.
Those barriers are going to come to you. And he's back to the pits.
Julian Brain's also looking like he's doing a lot better at this track. Seems to be doing quite well with his car. Some drivers getting on with it, some not. Some are finding it very difficult to drive. Others are actually just excelling in it. Of course, Carrot is totally excelling in it. He's making everyone else look a bit silly at some of the tracks. He's won every single race so far. He's had one pole position, lost out on the other by only a fraction. He's definitely had the pace around here, but I think this track, it's going to be a lot harder for him to dominate. It looks like the pace of the other drivers are a lot closer. We have Jandre and Chris right on his heels, and then we have Sean Olivier not too far back in fourth place. Jandre Duppenaar also right there. So I think this round it's going to be anyone's game.
In the configuration that this track was prior to the current layout, I had the privilege of going around as a passenger in 2 different cars. In Westbank V8's Class B, I went around for a few laps with Peter Lindenberg, and then in what was known as Stanek Group N back in the day, I went around in I've got to think whether they're in Class B or Class C, the Nissan with Chris Clark. So the late Chris Clark, unluckily, but certainly what a lot of fun. He mocks that when we came down the mine shaft and into the left-hander, he couldn't believe how good the grip was until he remembered, but he's got me as ballast on the left-hand side, keeping the wheels down. So it was a good point or a good laugh at my expense in the pits.
Of course, we were watching Javi Jose. Javi is one of the few drivers, I think the only driver in our current field that has actually driven the original Kyalami, the old layout, the classic layout, which I believe is a superior layout. I think this new layout is more technical maybe. The older layout was more simplified, but I think made for better racing. I certainly prefer
the other way around.
Yes, I certainly prefer the older layout.
Yeah, that was probably in its day, even though it wasn't dead straight, it had also a slight kink after you exited Luke. Is it Luke up at the top and then turned right, whereas they go left nowadays? That was flat out all the way down, and certainly was a very, very quick straight in motor racing back in the day.
So as far as I know, only one set of tires available for the drivers. Well, a dry set of tires and a wet set of tires. So we're not showing the tires unless it were to start raining, then we could put the tire information up, but everyone is on the same tires, so no tire advantage here.
The other question, they're over rotating again, Andre Hildebrandt, and that's of course the double apex corner. The other thing they changed as this car comes out of the pits, they've extended the pit exit. So there's a long piece where you actually have to stay, if you're coming onto the circuit, you have to stay to the left of the white line. And that is also done because of turn 1 being where it is, so that the guys that are approaching turn 1 at speed can actually see you coming out of the pits and you don't join the track as quickly as what it used to be prior to this layout.
Sean Olivier looking like he might improve on this lap if he keeps it on, and he does. Personal best in sector 1, slightly shy of his personal best in the middle sector, so he could be on for possibly even a second or third spot on the grid.
It was only 0.3 behind Chris Collison, so let's see what the last sector goes like.
All right, up to fourth. So he did improve, but actually stays in fourth.
Yeah, but he reduces the gap slightly. So it's now only 0.1 or thereabouts of a second between himself and Chris Collison.
And Jean-Louis de Toy now starting a flying lap. Currently in second place, 0.435 off pole position.
And if you have a really demon lap around Kyalami, you can probably make up 0.435. Gerrit Beekes will be watching this. You're not going to make it up like that.
No, definitely not.
Okay, so back into the pits he goes as well.
Garrett now coming out of the pits, is keeping out of the way of Sean, I believe it is.
Oh, well done. Also keeping the guy that's on flying lap in mind.
It was actually Monet coming past him, and then I presume he made a mistake. Right, everyone seems to be making camera shy or something at the moment, but everyone is making mistakes when I click on them. Hopefully we can find someone that won't. Julian, personal best in sector 1, keeping it on the road so far.
Let's see how Julian does. Trying to improve on a 148.075.
Julian, of course, does work with cameras professionally, so doesn't seem too shy about being on camera, so hopefully we'll keep it on track.
Actually just going to change the pictures around and get the cars on my right. And you use the lap scoring monitor quite a lot in commentary. If you wonder where we get all these facts and figures and the gaps, it's not that we suck them out of our thumb. We do have a lap scoring monitor which gives us these facts and figures and allows us to paint a picture that you guys then can see what's happening on track, and we give the background to that.
So of course, Julian Brains did jump up to 8th place, as we now watch Maurits van Wyk, one of the veteran drivers, I believe currently leading the veteran championship, starting a flying lap. In fact, I think he's actually second to Andre Hildebrand. I would need to check that, but we can have a look at that later on. Into sector 1, slight lock of the front left.
He was also a bit wide of the apex at that point.
I think that is probably because of the lockup. He had to roll off slightly.
Yeah. Everything happens, and that's
not going to happen.
Into that corner used to be called Nashua, and back in the days, and I'm not punting anybody, there was a pub on the outside that we used to frequent called Fat Arnie's, and Fat Arnie used to run the Batmobile BMW. So also a well-known person in motor racing in South Africa that actually owns, there's a lockup that's going to drift you wide. Now this track is difficult. I'm watching it, the guys, even Chris Collison, who's really quick, he's battling with braking points and how hard to brake and to keep the car on the line. Kyalami is not a simple circuit to drive.
It's a fantastic circuit, but yeah, not the easiest track to master.
You can get to know all the corners, but you might even know the lines that you want to run through them, but to actually get those lines right every time, as we see there again, Andre Dippenaar making a mistake on the brakes, and he just scrubs that lap and goes back into the pits.
Yeah, we're seeing many drivers making mistakes. It's almost like they're doing it in batches. Currently our veteran drivers are 12th, 13th and 14th. And the leading...
Andre and Marius.
Yeah, Harvey currently the leading veteran driver. Of course, he has the most real-life experience at Kyalami.
In sort of all of its guises. I'm not sure that in real life he's actually driven in anger on this track yet, because I don't think the formulas that Harvey drives in real life compete. Harvey tries to take the line. I don't think he saw that car in his mirrors and turned in on the line, and that makes him immediately, when you bite again coming out of that corner, you get to go to it's the inside of the circuit, but the corner that is now called Barbecue, and that used to be where the old pit complex used to be on the old circuit many years ago, the one that I said went clockwise. So the Marshall's Clubhouse was also there in the years that I used to do prize giving at Kyalami proper, and it certainly is one of those corners. It's easy to get it wrong. And if you get it wrong, and for some reason you get what in biking terms is a tank slapper, where you all of a sudden get the wheels to grip again, the chances are the car is rotated and you're pointing at the barriers on the inside of the track, and that's where you go to. It's almost better to let it slide and let it run to the outside and try and control it in the gravel and slow it down before you hit the barrier on the outside, than trying to control the car once it's rotated and then hitting the barrier on the inside of the circuit.
Just a shout out to the people on YouTube. So hello to Samar saying go to the yellow bumblebee. So hopefully we're going to watch a lap now on board with Carrot, and he can hopefully do you proud. Also good to have Flynn Faraday in the chat saying good day chaps. Nice to have Flynn back.
I wouldn't say nasty habit, but I have nasty habits of, if you want to call it that, of giving guys nicknames, like the Boeing Brigade, the 777 and the 737. Gerrit Beekes is the Flying Bumblebee. The green car, which belongs to, I always get confused with Jandre and Genre.
Genre is the green one, yes.
Yes, that's the lean green machine. So that's also on track today. And a lot of them run in different championships, which we also commentate on. And they tend to take their colors with them, or their skins, as it's known in sim racing, which makes commentary, you recognize them a lot easier. So the S's, you can't miss those. And then up the hill, the blind hill of Luco.
Bumblebee on the bonnet for those that haven't yet spotted it.
Yeah, that if we get to be in car again going up the hill towards Luco, I must actually point it out to you. Peter Lindenberg pointed out to me that because the corner is blind, you have to aim at something. Now, whether it's the same bush or not, I don't know. The corner hasn't really changed. But there is, and I think it's the left one of the three, and that's where Gerrit was aimed at now. You actually aim at that bush, and once you crest, you've almost got to have blind faith to know that you're going to crest the hill and then go onto the brakes. You can't go onto the brakes when you go over the crest, because that's when the car's light and you're going to lose control. You've just got to go over the crest and then very quickly thereafter be on the brakes. But I'll point it out if we have the opportunity of going up the hill to Lukop again. There's the leftmost of three bushes that one aims at. Well, in any case, that was what I was told. Made a lot of sense to me then. I've actually gone around the older version of the circuit in, I'm trying to think of his name now, in what used to be called the Sports 2000s, which was a Opel 2-litre 8-valve motor, if I remember correctly. And you were given, in fact, it's Rian Botma's car. I went round and he said, take it out on an out lap, do 2 flying laps, and then come in on a slowdown lap. And of course, being a typical car owner, he had a stopwatch on me, and he said I would have just qualified in the sort of middle of the bottom half. So I wouldn't have been slowest, but I wouldn't have been the quickest either.
That's one thing about a competitive driver. You never want to be the slowest.
Now, so now, of course, I've missed the climb up to Lukop in talking about Rian Botma's car. All that I remember, I'm not the skinniest of guys, neither is Rian, so luckily I fitted into his seat. But shall I call it, the fat overflow under the shoulder was being pinched by his seat, so that I came out of there with a blood blister of note, but a smile on my face that said it all. Okay. I've got a picture somewhere. I borrowed a helmet. I have a large head. I'm not big-headed. I actually have a head with a large circumference. And the only gloves I could find were gardening gloves. So, yes, 4 laps of Kyalami with a Unicorn Shipping Lines white overall and gardening gloves. That was me.
Right, Morne deploy into sector 1. Let's see if he can do a good lap. The previous lap, I think he made an error and it didn't count. And it looked like he was scrubbing his tires a bit, trying to get some temperature in them. Morne, of course, is the teammate to Sean Olivier. Morne is a very quick driver on his day, struggling a little bit for pace at the moment.
Personal best in sector 1.
Kind of expecting him to be around sort of 5th place in pace. Looking like he's just taking a little bit too much curb, getting a bit ragged, getting the car unsettled.
Yeah, it's a fine balance getting things right. And there I've missed it again. When you see a car, when you're inside of a car going up the hill towards Lukop, there are a few bushes. There's 3 that stand out. The leftmost one of the 3, that's what they aim at to get the line right going in blind into Lukop. Harvey Gous, of course, the colors that one recognizes quite easily, but he's disappeared. Yes, he's missed the corner completely with a blue and white with a slight red trim to it. So, and everything that I've been commentating on sim racing that Harvey runs, he's had that color scheme, so it's easy to pick him out.
Yeah, it's actually a replica of one of his original Formula V colors that he ran. Morne does jump up to 9th, by the way.
Yeah, Harvey's running last at the moment. He's 3 seconds and a bit behind Andre Hildebrand, so a lot to go for.
Yeah, times have jumped up quite a lot because he was the leading veteran driver. He's now the slowest of the veteran drivers.
Yeah, the track is rubbering in quite nicely, I think. So I can expect if somebody still has tyres to put on towards the end, there's still almost 6 minutes remaining. So the guys can do a few more laps. A lap, of course, at Kyalami, 1 minute 40. The quicker guys, 150 for Harvey. So give or take, say, 2 minutes as we get through Clubhouse Corner, the left-hander with Yandre. Let's see if we stick with Yandre, then I can tell you about this bush that I'm not talking a load of hogwash. Into and out of the S's. This is where the car gets a little bit light on your right-hand side because it leans over to the left. And they're going up the hill of the 3 bushes, and you aim at that roundish shaped one there on the left of the 3, the bigger one of the 3. So well done, Yandre, for aiming at the right tree.
And it's a personal best in Sector 1 for Yandre, so he's going for that top 3 starting position.
I think he's coming up to Harvey. Harvey stays left. And Yandre actually has to change his racing line, which isn't the ideal line to have. In motor racing, you actually try and attack the corner from the wide point, clip the apex, and then drift out wide again, as they do now for this left-hander. Stay upright, come into the left. He's actually missed the apex there by about a foot, and then drift out wide as far as the rumble strips do allow you. Let's see what Mr. Dippenard manages to do.
Slower in the final sector, so it didn't improve.
Yeah, I think it was that change in line that he had in the bowl, which is now called the Crocodiles, I think. With Harvey doing the right thing and staying out of his way. But yes, it is the Crocodiles. And but it still meant that he had to change his racing line going through that corner.
Of course, the reason why drivers take the wide line in and go wide out and hit the apex in the middle, it's the line of least resistance. You have to turn the least, you can carry more speed that way, and that's how you go faster around a circuit.
You actually try and straighten the corner, as it were, but you have to change direction at some time because that's where the track goes. But as you say, that's the line of least resistance. True life racing, I had the good fortune of doing the advanced driving school course offered by Audi at the old layout on the skid pan. When you rotate it like that, you've lost half a second already. I did the Audi advanced driver training on the skid pan, amongst others, on the skid pan at Kyalami. And then we went for a few fast laps. And the guy said, in real life racing, you can only really take the genuine racing line when you're running in isolation. When you have cars around you, then you actually have to change the line, which slows you down and everybody else, because you can't allow anybody to dive up your inside. Because if they dive up the inside, they just need to run a little bit further, and that effectively kills your line out of the corner as well. Here's Jean-Ray with a lean green machine.
He's on an out lap, as is Gerrit Beerkus, so our number 1, number 2 driver at the moment, both heading out on an out lap to go for one last flyer. I think they'll only get one in. Don't think they'll get a second in, so we'll be watching them both closely.
2 minutes 30 to go, and they've got quite a while to get through the circuit before they get to the start-finish line. They'll make it to start another lap, but that'll be about it.
Gerrit gets there first.
Gerrit will get this lap in.
Gerrit has one of the Thorax Racing drivers in front of him. I'm not sure if that is Sean or Monet. Currently Sean is in 5th place, Monet is in 9th place.
Right, the Flying Bumblebee certainly is flying. Let's see if he puts up any greens. If what we see on the lap scoring monitor, if it's a green, then it's a personal best in the sector. My brain and my tongue, it's not. It just indicates that he's gone through the sector. If it's a purple, then it's a best of all competitors in the sector, and then it gives us an indication per sector. Either black, which just says he's gone through slower than any of his previous bests, as we are still 1.5 minutes to go. So I'm not sure how long Gerrit takes from here to the start-finish line, but certainly he might, but somehow I don't think he'll get to do another lap. But then again, trying to do the best out of tyres, and also he will more than likely know that his Sector 1 time is not an improvement on his personal best, but so also for Jean-Ray. they're very, very close. Gerrit Beekes at 29.864 in Sector 1 and Jean-Ray de Toy at 29.827. So 400th of a second.
Jean-Ray's up. Jean-Ray's up in Sector 1, personal best.
Let's see what they do in Sector 2. Gerrit puts up a 50.562. We have 39 seconds to go. They might just make it for another lap. Yellow in Sector 3. Luckily that disappears. So that will mean he can keep the lap time. Let's see how Jean-Ray goes. With 27, he's going to have another lap. I think he might just get another lap.
It's going to be close though, yeah.
Gerrit's gone through with a personal best in Sector 3. A 140.907 is the lap. So let's see what Jean-Ray can do with 10 seconds remaining.
Squares off the final corner, so he'll get a good drive. So this will be the last attempt for him. He should have good top end because of how he took the final turn.
Yeah, he's 0.4 of a second below Gerrit Beekes. So if they can be this competitive in race itself, it's certainly so. There we with Gerrit. Gerrit got that corner. He had to take the corner 3 times because the car's back end came round on him. So he had to correct and correct again. So Chris Collison in 3rd position. He's about 0.7 of a second behind. Oh, nice lock up there, which means you don't get the line that you really want to take. So Chris will get the checkered flag, which has been out already. So this is his last lap. He hasn't improved from what I can see. 141. So he's about 0.7 of a second behind pole. So the race could, of course, be a different, I wouldn't say setup, but the cars are more than likely fueled for qualifying, but they'll have to be fueled to complete the race proper, and that might just change. Although we've heard from the guys that the Porsches do change the characteristics. Some of the guys like it, some of them don't. They do become different cars to drive as you burn off the fuel. So we'll have to wait and see if that makes a difference. Let's see if Jean-Ray can improve on his 41.341.
Can. Fastest overall in the middle sector. Oh, runs it wide then straight after that.
Yeah, that's you swings and roundabouts. You gain some and you lose on others. That little bit of dust that he puffed up there is just after the edge of the concrete strip. So seems to be quite neat out of there. Not sure if he exceeded with the left wheels, the track limits. Let's see if he improves on the 341. It's a 379, so within the hundredths of a second, it's slightly slower. So I think that'll be pretty much it as far as the qualifying session goes.
It is indeed, and we're going to jump to an ad break and we'll be back with you shortly.
Until then.
Right, welcome back everyone. Of course, we are now live for the Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 3 Race 1, coming to you live from the Kyalami Grand Prix circuits in Midrang, South Africa. I'm your commentator, Dennis Mitchell, joined once again by Sean Woodgate. Good evening, Sean.
Good evening, Dennis. Good evening, everybody. Nice to be here. Nice to have all of you here.
All right, let's just have a look at our schedule for the season. So this, of course, is Round 3. We will then be heading over to Silverstone, then Nürburgring, then the Spa Grand Prix circuit, then Suzuka, then Zandvoort, then Montreal, and finally the Monza Grand Prix circuit.
We'll have great circuits still to come.
Yes. Right, the drivers on their formation lap at the moment. Let us have a look at our starting order. So, starting in pole position, Gerrit Bierkes. In second place, Jean-Andre de Toy. In third place, Chris Collison. And in fourth place, Jan-Ray Duppenau. In fifth place, Sean Olivier. In sixth place, Stanton Augustus. In seventh place, Julian Brains. And in eighth place, Peter Geldenhuys. In ninth place, Monet de Toy. In 10th place, Wessel Fullion. In 11th place, Marius van Wyk. And in 12th place, Arjen Belder. In 13th place, Andre Hildebrandt, and in 14th place, Harvey Goos. As we watch the drivers slowly making their way around, we see that Gerrit and Jean-Andre are leaving Chris behind a bit.
Yeah, there are quite a few big gaps that the guys behind have to do quite a bit of catch up. But I think once they go through the crocodiles, or otherwise known as the bottom of the mine shaft, they'll slow things right up and get everybody into position again.
As we slowly watch the drivers come around, they really are taking it easy. Well, some of them are taking it easy. The front three have pulled away. They're actually quite far away. Gerrit is over 3 seconds ahead at the moment of Jean-Andre.
Yes, I think you've got to keep in mind that you must not pass the car ahead of you, but also not allow him to get too far away. So try and keep information as tightly as possible.
You see the drivers weaving, trying to get the temperature in, but obviously not doing too much of the damage to their tires. So some of the drivers choosing not to weave. Some drivers say it does work, some say it doesn't work, so it's personal preference. So Gerrit and Jean-Andre are already up to the final turn, which is Ingwe, if I'm correct.
Well, that's the one I always forget, but yes, it is Ingwe. I can tell you what it used to be, but in the days back then, and I suppose people will say you're advertising on their behalf. Not sure quite how hot these cars get standing still, but with the front three so far ahead of the rest, they're going to be stationary for quite a while.
Right, they pull up to the grid. I'll get our timing up in a moment.
14 cars making it to qualifying. They're almost in position.
Right, as we wait for the lights to go green. Seconds to go. 3 seconds to go. 2, 1. And we're away.
Right, demon start by Gerrit Bierkes, but certainly a good start by Chris Collison, right off the line, getting the jump on Jean-Ray de Toy there. And Jean-Ray's lucky his car's that quick because he's on the outside of the circuit. Had any of the cars further back been able to follow Chris, he might have lost another position.
Yeah, so nice and neat through turn 1, everyone getting through cleanly.
It is, and the double direction change I think makes it difficult because it's left for Crowthorne, right for Yuxkay, and then 90 left for Barbecue. And already into Sunset and on their way to Clubhouse. But the Flying Bumblebee already has 5, 6, 7 car lengths in the lead, so he's really getting away from the rest of them.
Look at the data of the drivers. At the moment, the green is your throttle, the red is your brake, so we can see how they're applying their throttle and their brake. Andre currently challenging, having a good look here. Reading the back branding on the car quite clearly there.
Yeah, the midnight code of Jean-Ray Dutoy. It's one of the Boeing Brigade, number 737. See, 777 is not running today in this formula.
He was earlier, I'm not sure what happened to him, so perhaps choosing not to race. He did race earlier today, so maybe just feeling a bit of fatigue.
I tell you what, Jan-Ray Dippenaar is certainly telling Jean-Ray Dutoy that I'm right here to give you a bit of uphill, but he was on the outside of the corner, and that's a very difficult place to overtake. At Ingwe is on the outside of that corner, so you'll probably think it better to line up on the inside going into turn one, but they are a little bit too far back. Oh, and he misses the brake mark completely, does Jean-Ray Dutoy. So there everybody goes second, third, fourth. I think he might join fifth or sixth. He would of course lost a lot. He's just ahead of Julian Brain, so he's fifth. So yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, but it's just as if he missed his brake marker completely, and he's very lucky to have got back onto the circuit without any damage.
Chris Collison now in second place. He's being challenged by Jan-Ray Dippenaar. So Jan-Ray having a good look at the moment. Carrot is starting to pull away already.
And of course, with the battle behind, they'll be slowing each other up a little bit. And that'll be playing into the hands of Gerrit Beekes, and he'll just get the flying bumblebee all the way out of there, and it'll be in the far distance that they will see it disappear. Already has a 1.6 second lead in this half-hour race.
Oh, Sean getting a big drift on. Wow, well held.
Yeah, it's not a bit of a drift. That was quite a reasonable drift. That was Jean-Ray, was it?
That was Sean getting sideways there, yeah.
Yes, 137. In that, what is a pinkish purple or a combination? It's a very difficult color to describe. But there it looks as though Jean-Ray is battling, because they seem to catch up on him in the corners, and then just by having a good racing line out of the corner, maybe that's just the way that it looks in the corner, you dive up on the inside, but the guy that actually has the momentum, the slingshot out of the wide apex, actually gets past, and now Jean-Ray actually does put the foot down and get rid of Sean Olivier behind him.
Ooh, Chris locking up. Big lock up there by Chris, and Jan-Ray right up to him now.
Yeah, that's a very close fought battle. 0.3 of a second that Jan-Ray Dippenaar is behind Chris Collison. So Chris Collison, as we said on the start, he had a demon start. He just followed the leader of the space that was there because he was on the other side. And yes, did follow the leader, so he was in third position. And by the time they got to turn one, he'd made up the position. He's defending hard now from Jan-Ray Dippenaar, but we'll see whether Jan-Ray can get at him.
Yeah, that's 3 corners in a row where he's locked up now.
Yes, and that doesn't do good for tire temperatures and wear, because they're going to get hot, but there's half an hour to go. The weather certainly looks as though it's going to stay dry. Here comes a plunge up the middle, and it's just clever driving there by Chris to let him actually overrun the corner, and then he just takes his normal line and dives up his inside again and takes the position back.
Very good.
Yeah, that's sensible driving, because had you competed for the position, there would have been contact and more than likely both cars off the circuit. So stomp on the brakes, let him go right through, and then you just turn in on his inside again.
Julian Brain's having a good race as well, challenging for, what is this, 5th place at the moment.
Yeah, it's just half a second behind Sean Olivier, so pushing hard, what it's worth.
And Stanton Augustus is right behind him, as well as Monet Deploy. So nice battle, a 4-way battle at the moment.
And Peter Geldenhuys is less than a second behind Monet. So yeah. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars from Sean Olivier, Julian Brain, Stanton Augustus, Monet Deploy, and Peter Geldenhuys. So a mistake from any one of them, and you could see a change of position. See, they've added those, what shall we call it, concrete blocks to add to the circuit because the guys tend to run off quite a bit there. And that does help for grip, but as you see, it has grass growing through it. So the grip will not be as good as what you have on the tar, but it does mean that you don't go sliding off into the barrier. So at least you have some grip. There are the 5 cars that we mentioned, and they are chasing really hard. Stanton Augustus in 7th in car number 997.
Having a good look at Julian, but Julian seems to pull away in the middle sector. In the first sector and the final sector, Stanton catches the middle sector. He seems to sort of just pull a bit of a gap, which helps him to survive the lap.
Yeah. And Stanton seems to get up to him at the top, and then at Lukup, and he's held him all the way down here to the Crocodiles. He's not getting away as Julian, so Stanton's staying right there with him. And let's see if he can make any change. I don't think he'll try and do the change at Ingwe, the last corner, but certainly he'll try for position as they go down the straight.
Julian getting very, very sideways there.
And that'll give Stanton the chance to be up on the inside for turn 1. So just a slight change or mistake there. He's going to be on the outside for this kink, but he's going to be on the inside for turn 1.
Nice move there by Stanton.
Yeah, no mess, no fuss. He just takes it clear. I wouldn't say with the greatest of ease, but he got it positioned out of Ingwe and then held it for the kink, and then just had the right piece of road to get it through Crowthorne very neatly and take up 1 position.
So now Stanton has Julian all over the back of him.
Also, Stanton with Julian Brains chasing hard in the, is that a dark metallic green? So they're getting at each other's throats. Certainly nice clean racing, everybody giving each other room. Kyalami, of course, is quite a nice wide circuit. As I said, even though it's nice and wide, the racing line is not that wide unless you see, like we just did, a mistake being made, then the guys can actually reap the benefits there. Oh, Stanton locking up the lefts, and that causes him to drift a lot wider than what he would have liked, and he misses the second apex completely by more than a car width. But he stays ahead of Julian, so although it's a mistake, it looks as though he held it quite well, and he's driving a little bit of middle of the road at the moment, not going from the wide line. As I said also, if you're being challenged, then you can't have the luxury of always going wide entry over the apex, wide exit. You've got to drive a little bit defensively as well. There he does clip the apex and drift the car out nicely to the rumble strip on the outside. What are the other gaps? Jean-Ray de Tour is only 0.3 of a second behind Jan-Ray de Penard. Chris Collison, down in 4th, is 0.6 of a second behind Jean-Ray, and Sean Olivier is half a second behind Chris Collison. That's the battle that you see now there, 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th. So everybody there is fighting for position. Bit of a slide there from Jean-Ray in the lean green machine. Chris Collison is holding a nice line there in 4th.
Yeah, nice battle at the moment.
Yeah, and certainly you can't afford to make the slightest of mistakes. Well, oh, there's a bit of a nudge. And that's, and he again tapped off it completely, knew the guy's coming through the corner too fast, let him run through and then just dive up on his inside again. So clever driving by Chris, but it slows him down, unluckily. And Sean Olivier's got a good turn of speed. I think there Chris just takes the blocking line, as it were. That's not the racing line at all, and then drifts a little bit wide, like almost as if it were a pass. In motorcycles it would be a block pass that you just put the car, you plonk it right in the way, and that guy's not going to get past you. There again, a little bit of the middle of the road. Yeah, he does take the racing line. He's too late on the brakes. He drifts wide, and he's not going to be able to cut in the inside again. So that's a change for position out of the Crocodiles, and that was purely because of the lockup for Chris Collison there. So Sean Olivier taking that position from him there.
Not getting very sideways.
Now this is tough racing. It's certainly, if you look how long the race is, the guys are driving hard on the tires. They've only done 10 minutes of a half-hour race. So if they're sliding the tires and doing the lockups now already with 20 minutes to go, we might have an interesting race coming our way at the end. Gerrit Beekers has the fastest lap of 143.3, and his last lap was 144.2. So he's actually backed off by about a second from his best lap. We can think that he will be keeping that pace as the fuel burns off. Looking back now there where it's got the Kyalami, that used to be the outside commentary tower back in the day. I'm not sure if it's still in use. The best view in the land. We couldn't see the front straight, which our colleagues that were in, shall I say, the office commentary booth on the outside of the start-finish line, and also we had the benefits of television back in the day. Rob Waitman Productions gave us a view of what they could see at race control. And yeah, but the place to be was in the tower, all those vertical steps, and we had a few guys up there that couldn't handle heights, and they opted to go back into the office.
Nice and close here between Julian Brains and Peter Geldenhuys. Look there.
Yeah, he's having a nice one. Look at the lock up there though. Peter Geldenhuys, that's quite a few of the guys, and even Julian running a lot wider out of the circuit. Or off the racing line than what he would have preferred, and you immediately see the gap open up between himself and Peter Geldenhuys.
Drivers seem to love getting the rear end out on the braking and then squaring it off and driving out, but they seem to lose a bit of traction doing it that way.
Yes, and as I say, I don't think it's too kind on the tyres, especially if you're doing it this early in a race. There's another set of braking going into turn one. So, was that Stanton on the brakes there? Stanton, of course, runs in the endurance races for the, now I've got to get their name right and I've forgotten it, the Autotech e-sport team. So they used to running endurance races of 24 hours, and this to them really is a 30-minute sprint. But the racing style in a sprint and an endurance race is, of course, totally different. But that being said, just as you've got to make your tyres last in an endurance race, you've also got to make them last in a sprint race like this on a hot day like this on the Highveld.
The gaps are spreading slightly. There are one or two that are very close. Julian Monet very close. And then we've got this battle here at the moment with Sean and Chris very close.
They seem to manage to stretch it now. It was a second, now it's back to 0.6, as we say again, depending who's on the throttle, who's on the brake. But nice to have the battles throughout the field. 1.2 seconds that Mornay deploys behind Julian Brains, so that could still become quite interesting. Now the Crocodiles, you see everybody taking a different line other than the one than what one would expect, because there's no challenge at the moment. But I think the guys have got used to the line that they prefer, and they run that line if they're not defending the corner. And if it works for them, then why not? Here's Mornay deploy, chasing Julian Brains ahead of him. But they are 1, 2, 3, 4 cars. So it's Mornay deploy, Julian Brains, then ahead of that is Peter Geldenhuys and Stanton Augustus, the fourth car that you see just going through ahead of these three.
I think Mornay is coming. His lap times, I think, are quite consistent at the moment. About the same lap time-wise as Julian. He's looking a bit smoother, so perhaps as the race progresses, he'll start to catch with less tyre wear.
Yeah, the guys are doing, if I looked at the last Sector 1 times, the quicker guys are doing the high 30s, 30.7s, thereabouts. The slower guys are in the 31s. So it's at about 31 seconds for Sector 1, and nice to see that there are so many cars so close to each other. To give you an idea, the top 9 cars are separated by 16 seconds, which is close racing for what we've got used to, and they've been running for 16 minutes. So to be only separated by 16 seconds is actually very close racing thus far.
Let's get back to our live single camera feed.
And Mornay deploy tying his best to get out of 9th position to catch Julian Brains. And of course the pressure that you do put on a driver, if he sees you in his rear view mirrors, that might pay off. Coming up to Ingwe, I don't think anybody's going to do something when you're so far behind the car in front of you. Just take a smooth line a little bit of getting all of the car beyond. Well, he was on the rumble strip, so I'm not sure how harsh they are and how many warnings they get for track limits, and whether that would be considered as exceeding track limits if both sets of wheels go onto the rumble strip. In other words, off the white line that demarcates the start of the rumble strip. They're normally quite lenient if you put one set of wheels on, but when both sets of wheels go beyond, then you'll have a gurgling in your ear from the race director.
There's Jean-Andre now challenging Jean-Andre.
Now that's for second and third, so very close racing. A third of a second separates the two, but I don't think one will be counting the time. You'll rather look at the distance between the cars. And the thing is that Jean-Andre has the benefit is that he can see where Jean-Andre might be slow or might be taking a defensive line, and he can then be calculating where he's going to do a pass. But I think that there's a mistake already, approaching the first apex, and he misses the second apex completely and then takes it down the hill. From what I've been told, believe it or not, I'm not sure in the current configuration, but in the old configuration, going down the mine shaft was not the fastest point on the circuit. It was, in fact, that little kink just after the finish line. That was the fastest point on the circuit. So I don't think that much has changed, except in these cars, maybe with their weight and everything. But then again, you're coming out of the slow corner at the top, and you've got to get the momentum going. Yeah, but you're nice and flat already. And this point they're approaching now, where it's slightly to the right, that used to be. But I think they'll keep it flat out now with this layout because the corner is a lot deeper. So I think just before they start the brakes for turn one, that'll be the point that, in my opinion, will be the fastest point on the circuit as they approach Crowthorne, just before the brake markers for Crowthorne.
So a few battles that are getting closer and closer. Mornay Deploy has actually got past Julian Brains and has pulled away slightly, so we missed that one, but it's already happened, so apologies for that.
Yeah, we can't have all the cameras everywhere all the time, but we did see it building up, and we see that Mornay Deploy already has... I wonder if Julian didn't make a mistake because the interval's 11 seconds.
His last lap time would say so, because of 1:56.9 on his last lap.
Yes, so that tells me we missed wherever he did what he did, and it was worth about 12 seconds. So a slight mistake, well, that's not a slight mistake, a big mistake like that is definitely going to cost you track time. And how far is Vessel back? Now, Vessel's a long way back, so he's not going to be challenging Julian. So Julian will probably be settling for ninth because with a gap of 11 seconds, he's not going to be able to chase Mornay Deploy.
The Vessel's car is what's called a sticker bomb car, so there's just a whole bunch of stickers stuck all over the car. It actually looks amazing when you get up close to it. The number of stickers and things on there, it's quite colourful.
Who ran the car? I can't remember in which category it was, that they had all the, what are they, like honeycomb decal on the bonnet. It was a very, very nice design. It was green and black.
That was Donnie Stunder.
Yes, you see, you remember it as well, because it really made imprinted in my mind how nice that color scheme looked, especially when you were in cockpit with him. You could see the decal up close, and it was a really nice looking car.
This is interesting. So Jean-Andre has gone from attacking Jean-Andre to now defending from Sean Olivier. So Sean having a good race, moving forward, and now he's starting to challenge for the podium.
And you see it, that's was Chris Collison in amongst all of that. So
he's lost out
Chris
slightly.
Chris in the back mark, because that's confusing me.
Yes, that's Andre Hildebrand. But Chris is just
Yes.
behind this, so he's 4 seconds back, which we can catch him here.
There he comes with Stanton in tow. So Chris and Stanton are having, well, they're close enough that if Chris makes a mistake, Stanton's going to be right there at him. And Stanton, we've seen in previous races, he's just like Mr. Consistency. He gets the right line, so he aims at a different bush, and Chris Collison gets the brakes locked up, and Stanton's going to go up the inside. So there's a slight nudge. Racing incident, if anything, my opinion.
Rubbing his racing, yeah.
Not the judge of fact.
And now Peter
Chris can
Gelden is
hold on.
looking to challenge as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, if Chris can hold on, then he's got the inside line at the Crocodiles, but he couldn't hold on. So Stanton can actually pull away from him and use that wider line slingshot to get a little bit more speed out of the corner as they approach Ingwe.
Peter Feldenas will be rubbing his hands, especially as he sees that lockup. I'm sure he knows there's a position on the cards here. I'm sure he can, maybe, if he can get past, if he's got the pace, he could even challenge Stanton. There's still enough time left in the race.
Yeah, all of 9 minutes, thereabouts. Nice in the Castrol colours is Peter Feldenas.
Oh,
Yeah, and then in the lockup, we saw that coming. And off the track goes Chris Collison down into 8th. And let's see if Julian Brains, who's actually a long way back, it looks like Chris has got back on track ahead of Julian Brains. So Chris drops to 8th position.
he's actually at a DNF. So I think he maybe beached it there and got stuck.
Yes, the gravel at the old Kyalami, they probably just moved it. That wasn't very user-friendly. But then again, that's what gravel is for. It prevents you from hitting the wall at speed. One of the dangerous places with very little runoff is Kyalami turn 1. And in this case, the gravel trap worked, but unluckily a DNF for Chris Collison. And that with 8 minutes in the race still to go, and he was involved in such a nice battle. So now Jean-Ray de Toy has got 1.5 seconds before he catches up to Jan-Ray Dippenot. But Peter Feldenas fighting hard. He's less than a second behind Stanton Augustus. Stanton makes a pass on one of the back markers. That'll change his racing line. But here he goes for the apex, drifts out wide. No, he's taken the normal line, which was the right thing to do because Peter also had that back marker in the way and had to get around him. So Stanton just took the right line going through there. No lockup, but look how much Peter Feldenas catches up out of Ingwe.
In turn 1, he's going to go for it. He's got the momentum. Although Stanton's pulling away from him.
Yeah. So here it's going to be on the brakes. A defensive line there by Stanton, if anything. A little bit of middle of the road. And then he clips the apex, drifts out wide, and he'll probably drift out wide again to make it difficult for the next corner up the hill as they go into what used to be the old pit straight.
Peter taking an early turn into the apex to try and get a better drive here, but then got a bit sideways and lost a bit of momentum. I think if he didn't get sideways, he might have got the drive to get up the inside, or certainly go around the outside and get up the inside here.
Yeah, very interesting with 6.5 minutes to go. And the half minute probably means they'll do 2, 4, 6. They'll probably do 4 laps, maybe including the one that they're on. Stanton seems to be battling to maintain momentum is probably the easiest way to put it. There's a little round bush again. Now, there's a slight lockup. So Peter Feldenas is going to be seeing all of this and doing his own calculations as to where will be a good point to try and make a pass on Stanton. And Stanton, of course, will realize that he has a lockup here and there and will try and defend there. He takes a very different line. Goes into the apex quite early, and you see the slingshot there by Peter Feldenas out of the corner. It didn't get him any speed. They both sort of just go further than what the extra bit of concrete allows them and kick up a bit of dust. But they are driving at 10 tenths this late in the race with 5.5 minutes, 5.5 minutes to go.
Peter having a good look here, getting in the slipstream, but just not quite fast enough on the exit. Stanton definitely has a little bit extra traction, pulls car length or 2, and that I think is just saving him from the turn 1 lunge.
If you look at the last lap times, Stanton Augustus a 1:45.45 and Peter Feldenas a 1:45.47. So it's 2/100ths of a second that they differ, and that's as good as makes no difference. Yes, Stanton got a good line out of that corner, and as they approach Sunset. So the run out of Barbecue is important as well, because then you've got that straight bit before you go into Sunset Corner. And if you can go through Sunset without having to adapt your line, then you can have a nice turn of pace into the S's, out of clubhouse and then into the S's, which is what it appears he has done, because he's now stretched the lead, well, not the lead, the gap between Stanton and Peter has all of a sudden jumped to 1.3 seconds. And I think it's purely because of the good line that he had out of that corner.
We unfortunately have another DNF in the race. Julian Brains DNF, so I'm not sure what happened. It happened out of sight. But yeah, one more driver with the DNF, so maybe lock up somewhere and off into the barrier or teaching the car.
It might have been due to that one lap that we missed. Remember we said he had a lap that was about 11 or 12 seconds slower than his normal lap?
Yes.
Might have had some damage out of that one that then just caught up with him and caused him to DNF. And Arjan Belder, he's battling with the car, but he's still out there, even though it's 3 laps down. Andre Hildebrandt is 1 lap down. Javi Goos is 2 laps down, and Arjan Belder is 3 laps down. And those are the cars that are actually still classified as finishers in this race with 3.5 minutes to go. Again, the throttle and brake there. Very interesting to see how late or how long they carry on braking into turn 1. And this is Morné de Plooy in 7th position, and he's about 1.2 seconds behind Peter Veldmech, who is only a second behind Stanton Augustus. So that battle just rages on and on. Stanton from Peter from Morné.
Yeah, very close between these 3 at the moment. Of course, we do have Gerrit Bierkes out in front. We're not seeing much of him because he's all on his own, just driven away from everyone.
7 seconds worth. And that certainly is, there he is, the flying bumblebee. And certainly he's a hornet in their flesh, because I don't think anybody can get close to him. Well, they're not going to get stung by him because he's so far in the lead, even though he puts the right wheels on the grass there. But taking a nice smooth line in and out, retains his 7.5 second lead on Jandre de Pinaar. And into Ingwe, 2 minutes 20, so my thinking is he'll start this lap. He's got 2 laps to go is basically what I'm saying, because he runs this lap at a 1:45 or thereabouts. Yes, a 1:45.080, and there are 2 minutes left, so he's going to complete this lap and start the next one before we run out of time. So 2 laps to go for Gerrit Bierkes.
Getting very close between these 3 at the moment. Unfortunately, Morné just had a slight lock up there, ran slightly wide, but it was within a second between each driver, between 6th to 7th and 7th, sorry, 5th to 6th and 6th to 7th.
Yeah, very close racing it is there, a second or so, and as we've seen before, a slight mistake and a second disappears in a flash.
Battle for 6th box is only showing Peter. I don't know why it doesn't show the driver ahead and driver behind. Usually that would show the 3 drivers. It's not giving us what we were hoping for.
Nonetheless, just as a matter of interest, if you say I'll be back in a jiffy, if you were to look it up, I think a jiffy is classified as 1/100th of a second. Some useless information.
I always think of those jiffy bags that we used to get.
Yeah. But yeah, Stanton holding on, still 1.7 seconds now ahead of Peter Veldmech, and Morné de Plooy 1.5 seconds behind Peter. So sort of equidistant for those positions, no challenge being mounted at the moment. I think everybody has realized this is probably our last lap, because they might actually start another one with 40 seconds to go. So they might also do one more lap. But a great race run by Gerrit Bierkes. And as we said, we didn't feature him much. There he goes to start the last lap with just under half a minute to go. Right. So the others will come across as well, I do think. Not all of them, but certainly with 16 seconds to go, like to see who's still approaching the finish line. There's Jandre and Jandre, so they're on the last lap as well. So that's for 2nd and 3rd. Sean Olivier is only 4 seconds behind, so he would also be on the last lap now as the clock has ticked over. Oh, nice drift there by Jandre. Well, it was spectacular, but it's not good for racing. But well held.
Will he even be able to challenge? It's getting extremely close. He might actually have enough time to challenge.
0.4 of a second, and on the last lap, I would reckon he'd go for it. But where? That's the thing. And what lines will Yandre run to cover it? Certainly not going to try it through the S's. But the place that you could do it, depending where Yandre positions the car, is up at Luco. But he's too far behind. I don't think that's even how, if he's demon on the brakes. But that said, Yandre makes a lock-up on the brakes, so that brings him closer. Now we'll see if something happens in the Crocodiles. Because other than the Crocodiles, I can only think that Ingwe is a position to line up for a pass. Yeah, very clever positioning by Yandre there. First of all, it drifts to the extreme right and then runs middle of the road. And now, even if Genre were to come up on the outside, he'll be badly placed for Ingwe. So he can only hope that Yandre makes a mistake into Ingwe. He goes Gerrit for the win. Nah, they're too far back. There's no change going to happen yet.
So Gerrit will get the win from Yandre Dippenau in second place and Genre de Tour in third place.
And so we had battles all the way down to the finish line.
And look at this.
On the last lap.
Monet's got past Peter Geldenhuys and he's right up behind Stanton Augustus. So a good finish for Monet.
Yeah, certainly a great race that he's had and made it very interesting.
Wessel Viljoen currently in 8th place, so also progressed through the field, having a solid race.
Pity about the two DNFs. Gavi Gous finishing ahead of Arjan Belde, albeit 2 laps down.
A good race as well for Maurice van Wyk, the leading veteran driver, currently in 9th place.
Yes, he was only 2.3 seconds behind Wessel, so he could have actually got another position if he just managed to get a little bit closer, but still, when you've got something to aim at, he probably would say that he had a great race.
I think these will be the last drivers currently on the lead lap. I believe Andre is a lap down. So we'll have Wessel cross the line and then we'll have Morris cross the line, then we'll jump to an ad break while we reset for race 2.
We'll be back in a moment.
Right, here they come as Wessel comes across the line. 9th place, so 8th place and 9th place for Maurice van Wyk. Alright, so let's jump to an ad break and we'll be back shortly. welcome back everybody. This is the Sim Experience Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 3 Race 2 coming to you live from the Kyalami Grand Prix Circuit in Midrand, Gauteng, South Africa. I'm your commentator Dennis Mitchell, joined once again by Sean Woodgate. Welcome Sean.
Thanks, Dennis. Good evening, everybody.
Just to let you know, this is the final race of Round 3 from Kyalami. We'll then be heading over to Silverstone, Nürburgring, Spa, Suzuka, Zandvoort, Montreal, and then finally Monza. Let's have a look at our starting order. Drivers are on their formation lap. We have Gerrit Bierke starting in pole position from Jean-Louis du Toit, Chris Collison, and Jandre Dippenaar. In 5th place, Sean Olivier, Stanton Augustus in 6th, Peter Geldenhuys in 7th, and Monet Deploy in 8th. In 9th place, Wessel Viljoen. In 10th place, Marius van Wyk. In 11th place, Arjen Belder. 12th place, Andre Hildebrandt. And the final position, Harvey Goos. Unfortunately, we have had Julian Brains disconnect. He won't be joining us.
Still nice, bright sunshine at the circuit, so looks as though it's going to stay that way for race 2 as well.
Some of the drivers having problems from race 1. Chris Collison was one of them. He has rejoined, so I'm not sure what the issue was. Maybe it was just the running wide car maybe getting beached. We'll maybe find out afterwards, but he has rejoined for race 2.
Well, thank goodness the format in this racing is that you maintain your start position for both races that you got to run in qualifying. So Chris Collison, although he DNF'd in race 1, he still gets to start from P3, and if we remember, he had a demon start and actually got up to P2 on turn 1 in the first race.
As we watch Gerrit rounding the final sector, the last 3 corners, weaving quite aggressively. The pack behind spread out quite a long way, so once again they're slowing down, allowing him to cool his tires.
Not sure if that actually in the sim racing does make a difference, but everybody is way out of sight. Top 3 have gone through. Here come the rest now, so they're a long way back, approaching Ingwe, which is the last corner going into the straight.
It definitely does make a difference. Your tire temperature are crucial, especially in this car. It is something that Gerrit actually brought up at the previous rounds interviews, saying that you have to keep the tires in the right window. And I think the other drivers know that. With him being as fast as he is, they're trying everything to get an advantage. Holding back like that, just letting the tires drop out of the window, gives them that small advantage that they might have to get up to him or maybe even past him into turn 1. Right, so the drivers now all getting up onto the grid.
Nice for these cars, nice wide grid slots.
Right, as we wait for the lights. Counts down, 5 seconds to go. 3, 2, 1. And we're away. Good start by Monet Deploy in the background there.
I think this time Jandre has been up to the antics of Chris Collison, and he has a better start, and he's going to probably block that line very quickly going into turn 1. Yes, he does. So Chris actually now a little bit slower than he'd like, and he's got Jandre Dippenaar right there with him, which could be very interesting going down the old straight on the way to Sunset. Front 5 are very close. Somebody kicks up a bit of dust. It might have been Chris, in fact, in 3rd position. But I think I'll have to rename Gerrit Bierke from the Flying Bumblebee to the Humble Hornet, because then again, was it Valiant in the day made a Rambler Hornet, or Chrysler back in the day? There was a Rambler Hornet. It was actually very quick. So yeah, maybe Gerrit Bierke the Humble Hornet in the yellow and black colors.
Right, so the guys are challenging. They're all looking everywhere, but the gaps are very close. I think Chris Collison and Jandre Dippenaar are currently, the 3 of them are.
is it Stanton that seems to be a little bit far back after the start? So there's Chris
Yes.
Collison. Behind Chris is Jan-Ray. Then Sean Olivier. I think it's actually Peter Geldnys, the Castrol car. It actually has a bit of a gap there, already a bit of lockup as they go into the Crocodile. But that's to be expected because you're defending position this early in the race. No changes, nothing for the clock of the course, no protests, I think, forthcoming at this stage that I could see. But clean racing, everybody giving each other enough room. There was a little nudge, I remember, at Luke, but I think the pass would have happened anyway. So they will leave that as a racing incident. Lock up there. Is that the Castrol car or is that Stanton?
That's Stanton. I think the Castrol car is up ahead, who just had a lock up as well.
Yes, that's why it's, I wouldn't say difficult to identify the two. From a distance, the white and the red looks very similar. Now from the side you can see it's certainly close racing. This is sunset, and now, yeah, they'll just follow position, drift out wide, and he's actually going to go. No, he's decided not to go for that inside line at Clubhouse because it's very difficult. He might try it into the first S though. If he can plant it there, make himself a little bit wider, but no. Discretion, the better part of valor, they say, and he decides not to do it there. But having bailed out of that, he's lost momentum, and he might soon be under threat.
Another battle here is Chris Collison, yes, Chris Collison and Jan-Ray Dippenaar.
No, but Chris losing contact with Jan-Ray though. Jan-Ray's half a second behind the race leader Gerrit Beekes, but Chris Collison another 1.5 seconds further back. And Jan-Ray only 0.3 behind him. So Jan-Ray Dippenaar is certainly making life very difficult for Chris Collison. And we saw the mistake made by Chris when he ran off at turn 1 in race 1. As good a start as what he had in race 1, he actually then also had a mistake. I think it was a brake lockup where he ran into the gravel bed at turn 1 and ended up not completing the race. Certainly that car's quick down the straight though. Let's see what he does on the brakes this time. He might have adjusted the bias.
Wouldn't want to be an ant on that bumper.
Jan-Ray is so good under brakes at turn 1. Chris Collison was way ahead of him, got onto the brakes, no lockup, but Jan-Ray was right there with him and closed up the gap, and he's keeping it going down the old pit straight on the way to Sunset Corner. This is going to evolve into quite a nice race between what has already evolved into a nice race between Chris Collison and Jan-Ray Dippenaar right behind him.
No, this is Gerrit and Jan-Ray.
Sorry, Gerrit and Jan-Ray. Where am I keeping it?
2 places back is them. They're also having a good ding-dong battle, so you can actually see them in the background.
Gerrit's car and Jan-Ray, and then it's Chris Collison, the blue car, and Jan-Ray behind them. So this is actually for the lead. My humble apologies. I've got commentary going on cars that are actually 2 cars behind all of this. So that means, and if you look at the personal best coming there from Jan-Ray de Toy in the last lap, that Jan-Ray is quick and Gerrit is potentially not going to have it all his own way. Chris Collison running in isolation now, and a long way behind him is Sean Olivier and Peter Geldnys.
We've seen Jan-Ray Dippenaar drop right off the time, so he's down. Yes. Whatever happened there, he's down to, he's got a DNF.
Yes, so we missed, or the cameras missed that one as well. So that was the race that I was commentating on in my mind, but I had the wrong cars and the wrong drivers. So whatever happened there, and Jan-Ray is off the track, well, he's out of the race with a DNF, and he certainly had a good finish. Let's just have a look back at the results and see where Jan-Ray did finish in the race itself. Jan-Ray had a second place. So from second to a DNF, that's going to kill it a bit for his championship.
Yeah.
Wonder what the result or what the cause of that was. But yeah, so now we're down to 12. So Julian Brains out of the race, or didn't start the race. Jan-Ray Dippenaar DNF on lap 1 virtually, lap 2. So certainly a turn up for the book, something we wouldn't have expected. This is the race lead, first and second. I've got it right this time. And Chris Collison a distant third. So he's trying his best, but Gerrit Beekes just has this track so sorted and the car and he has himself also, I think, in the right frame of mind. Don't overdrive the car, drive the circuit, drive the car to its capabilities, and the rest will follow with everybody trying to chase and hunt you down. But Jean-Ray won't let him go. I can guarantee you that he'll stay right there with him. This is the one place we've seen various different racing lines, and we can more than likely expect to see some more different. Jean-Ray running a little bit tighter as he clipped the apex, but that meant the car was actually just stepping out a little bit on him rather than letting it flow the natural line that Gerrit actually ran. So that would have slowed him down rather than allowed him to catch up. What is the gap as they get to the finishing line? It was 0.76. It's 0.77, so it's increased by 100th of a second. So virtually they've held station on that last lap.
In the background, we have quite a nice battle going as well between Sean Olivier and Chris Collison. So that battle is brewing.
Yeah, and with it's Chris Collison, Sean Olivier, and Peter Geldnys not too far behind them as well.
Sean getting a little bit sideways there.
Yeah. Stanton seems to have lost. There he comes out of the corner now. So he was right up there with them. So he must have had a moment. If you look at the last lap times, his last lap a little bit slower than these by a second, which is quite a lot actually. So he must have had a moment because he was a lot closer to Peter Geldnys when I mentioned that the two white cars are difficult to differentiate when they are so close to each other. Sean Olivier pushing hard to get Chris Collison potentially to make a mistake again. Right up there on the brakes, there's the first apex, there's the second apex as they run out of Lukup down the hill, down the mine shaft.
Neutralizes as they go down here. Definitely the gap will close under the brakes.
Yep, or in the lockup with a thick black line painted by Chris Collison. So whether he's changed the braking from left to right or front to rear, he's still locking it up, but keeping in mind that if you're turning right, the right-hand side of the car is going to be light anyway. Yeah, he's turning left, and the left-hand side of the car is light. So all of a sudden, Sean Olivier is right there with him in a question of two corners.
And that's for podium places, so Sean is now fighting for podium. Chris is fighting to defend the podium. If Yondo not there, that's now the podium spot available.
Yes, indeed, because whatever happened to Jan-Ray, it's a bit of a shock, but certainly it happened. Nice of Chris Collison to put the number 22 on the tail of the car there, and because it's on a black background, the white number 22 is very visible, so you know immediately who you're looking at. We spoke about this in the other series that we commentate, that nice car numbering certainly does help. Although the caption here does help, but then you get idiots like me that talk about the wrong two cars. That's not the place to go, Sean, because if you go off the line there, and here again he's going to run track limits. I wonder whether he's going to have a mumbling from race officials for track limits, because it was all four wheels on the grass there. But then again, they might think that he's had enough of a penalty by being off the track. But then again, if that had been gravel trap of the old days, he might have been stranded there and out of the race.
Yeah. Just looking at the YouTube, we've got Carl Stieg saying, go Peter Geldnys. We've got Chris C. I guess that's Chris saying, sorry, came back too soon. He obviously made an error in race 1. And then we had Carl asking what had happened to Chris. Well, I guess Chris just made a driver error, as you just said there. And Flynn Faraday saying, Collison cooking those tires.
Yeah, he certainly is. Again, he had two lockups in the time that you were reading the feedback off the YouTube channel. And certainly Sean Olivier is making life very difficult. Although Sean Olivier going off track to get onto track again. So once again, depends on how strict the system is going to be with them track limits out of Ingwe. And certainly that is going to be very, very close. So here's Jean-Ray de Toy in second, and he's still going at Gerrit Beekes. So he's hanging on to him a lot longer. Well, last time he didn't have the chance of getting at Gerrit Beekes because Chris Collison had made the pass on him before they got into turn 1 on lap 1. Immediately after the start, he didn't have a great start, did Jean-Ray de Toy, and that sort of slowed him down for the rest of the race.
We have a battle change further back. think Sean made a slight error as he got a bit too close to Chris, and as a result, Peter was able to get past. I just saw that out the corner of my eye on the second screen.
Yeah. But the gap now between the two of them is a
Chris running
third of a
wide.
second and a quarter of a second. So it's very close, very tight. But Chris Collison from, where was he, third down into fifth.
I'm not sure.
Again, I think
Maybe he caused the issue because he rolled off then allowed them pass. So maybe he felt like he had done something he shouldn't have.
yeah, because certainly to roll off that much, we'll see the lap time. Just keep in mind, his previous lap was a 1:43.56, or his fastest lap.
Bit of
That was
contact
Sean
there.
Olivier, and was it Stanton coming past him?
It was Peter Geldenhuys and Sean Olivier.
Okay, so the two of them were close, and then a little bit closer than they should have been. I was just going to say, because Stanton's a distance back, but not so far back anymore. So I was talking about the 43 for Sean Olivier. If we look what this lap's going to be, it's going to be probably a bit of a nightmare. It is a 150.7. So 7 seconds that he lost on that compared to his best lap on that last lap.
And we got Bonnet Deploy now coming into play as well. Currently in 7th place.
If we look at the gaps, there's Jean-Ray du Toit only 0.7 of a second behind Gerrit Beekers for first and second. Then there's a big gap back to Peter Geldenhuys. But Peter Geldenhuys has Chris Collison within a second of him, and Chris Collison has Sean Olivier 3 seconds behind him. 0.4 of a second Stanton Augustus is behind Sean Olivier, and 1 second Mornay Deploy behind Stanton Augustus, and then the gaps are big thereafter again. So close racing all the way down to Mornay Deploy in 7th position. This is first and second. So the lean green machine of Jean-Ray du Toit is certainly fighting a much better battle this second race, the 737 in the Boeing Brigade, and Gerrit Beekers is fending him off. That's a lot closer than I think he'd like him to be, but they seem to run the racing line the way that I think the racing line should work there. And then also out of this corner, and he's too far back, I think, to do a suicide dive up the inside of Ingwe. But certainly close enough to catch the slipstream in position for turn 1.
Yeah, extremely close there. And Carrot is definitely going to be keeping too many eyes on the mirrors.
So Gerrit, he seems to be gets onto the throttle very quickly and gets about a 3-4 car length lead on Jean-Ray. But Jean-Ray is very, very good on the brakes going into turn 1 and catches right up to him again. Yeah, they're into the old pit straight and into Sunset. So Jean-Ray is certainly keeping him honest. 0.3 of a second. It seems to be just holding that gap between the two of them. And I think Gerrit's race will be a lot less easy than the first race was, because he's got this lime green machine right in his rearview mirrors all over the show. And he's got to really think about, well, not changing his line, but he's got to think about being defensive. And that'll definitely have a role to play on where he positions the car for the corner.
Yeah, that also means he's going to wear his tyres a bit more because he's driving more defensively, which could definitely play its part come the end of the race. With him being faster and driving his own lines and that, there's less stress on the tyres. When you're in a race like this, you tend to drive a bit differently, and it does often wear the tyres more aggressively, so it could play a part at the end of the race.
I'm not sure that wing, that if you can call it a wing, in front of and below the headlights, how much downforce that actually gives on the front wheels. But with him following, and him being Jean-Ray du Toit, following Gerrit Beekers so closely, he might lose a bit of that downforce. Although we've seen, if you look at him going into turn 1, he gets onto the brakes and he gets that car slowed down. So whether it's the downforce or the mechanical braking, he is very good on the brakes into turn 1.
I think that would be called a diffuser of sorts.
Yeah. So, yeah, 0.3 of a second still. Getting towards it still stays 0.3 depending where they are. Getting Jean-Ray, not Jean-Ray is forcing Gerrit to make a mistake here and there. So every little bit does help. 0.3 of a second it stays through Sunset and Clubhouse. On the brakes, they'll be again.
Don't want to do the commentator's curse, but Jean-Andre is looking a bit smooth the way he's sliding the car. In the previous race, he would slide and then come out of the slide quite aggressively. He's coming out of the slide a bit smoother now and managing to hold it, almost like we've seen Gerrit doing the rest of the championship. So he's maybe learning from Gerrit, as we see Gerrit now locking up. Pressure maybe mounting.
Yeah, I think pressure is there, so Gerrit has a bit of lockup, but again, it's turning left, so the left wheels will be lighter. Here's into the crocodile. He fills up that right-hand mirror with this lime green car, and he holds that line, but it's not going to be the fastest line out of the corner. But that being said, it's quarter of a second where it was always 0.3. Small gains, but I think the nuisance factor is what comes into play. And there he's like tire width behind Gerrit Beekes, and Gerrit knows that he's there, but look how the acceleration that Gerrit gets out of that corner is just enough to save his bacon going into turn one, because Jean-Andre du Toit is super good on the brakes going into turn one.
I think what Jean-Andre is going to have to do is just run wide into the final turn, square it off, and try and get a better drive out so that he can send it up the inside into turn one.
Yeah. Also, having said that, there's a back marker that's in the wrong place at the right time to affect, but it looks as though they've both gotten past him, but the back marker managed to miss everything, including the race leaders.
I'm sure they are very grateful.
I wonder, was that Arjan, do you think it was?
I think it was.
It wasn't Harvey,
yeah.
because Harvey runs in the BM, well, it's not the BM colors, but he runs in the white, blue, and red stripe. So it definitely wasn't Harvey.
And just further back in the field, of course, we do still have Chris chasing down Peter. So currently, Peter Geldenhuys in third place. A fantastic result for Peter.
Yeah, just putting a wheel off. That's an unusual place to put the wheel off, because you've already straightened up for the entry into the first of the S's. Chris Collison he was down to fifth, if I remember correctly, after whatever happened to get him go down to from third to fifth. But he's back up to fourth and chasing hard on Peter Geldenhuys. If we look at the last laps, he is 0.1 of a second quicker than Peter. Sorry, that's in the fastest laps. The last laps, he's 0.2 of a second quicker than Peter Geldenhuys. So he's going to be challenging really hard.
This battle for the lead here is really hotting up. At the corner of my eye, I saw them bumper to bumper again in one of the sectors, getting very, very close.
Again, Gerrit gets that good run out of Ingwe, and then look at him on the brakes, how good Jean-Andre du Toit is.
Slight nudge there.
Yeah. You don't want to do that too often. You don't want to incur any damage. But certainly, Gerrit Beekes is being made to race every single bit of this race. For the first time, the gap is more than half a second. I think with that nudge, Jean-Andre just had to get off the throttle. Otherwise, it could have ended worse. And with him doing that, it's extended now to 3/4 of a second. But he'll be fighting it back, believe you me. He'll be back at him, certainly when they get to the brake markers of turn one again. He was also good out of the crocodiles, the bottom of the mine shaft, as they wind their way through the S's and up the hill to Lukop. So let's see if Jean-Andre du Toit can decrease that 3/4 of a second back to 1/3 of a second, which they'd been running most of the race until now.
Yeah, Chris also in the background is getting very close to Peter Geldenhuys.
Yeah, Chris Collison has had a sort of topsy-turvy race meeting, but at least he has Peter Geldenhuys to aim at. Peter running car number 88, Chris Collison number 22. That's Chris in the blue. And in front of him is Peter Geldenhuys, the number 88 car. So, and not too far behind Chris is Sean Olivier. So these three guys have something. Again, Chris locks up a lot worse than everybody else. Or in this trio, he seems to get the biggest lockup on the right-hand wheels going into the right-hander.
Sean's getting the perfect view of everything in front of him. Once again, look at the dark lines being left on the road.
Yeah, so Chris Collison battling with the brakes or the way that they've been set up, but saying that, Sean Olivier just not close enough to mount a challenge and be there for turn one.
Down to 4/10.
Good on the, oh, there was a moment. I think Chris was very slow out of the corner, and Sean Olivier had to take evasive action there so as not to hit him. So he will see that Chris is battling, and whatever he's battling with, he needs to be positioned right to be able to make a pass if that should happen again.
Sean looking.
Sunset, you're not going to do it. Sunset, was that a nudge again? And he gets to the inside of Clubhouse. Is he going to dive it through? Is he going to roll it through? Well, Chris has let him go, and he's got the wheels on the dirt, and Chris has got the car better positioned for the entry into the S's. So that's, I think, happened twice in the first race, that Chris Collison actually allowed, and I think it might have been Sean as well, allowed him to go through, and I wouldn't say make him think that, that's a bit mean, because he wasn't anywhere near next to him.
I think that was just a lock up. The car was just sliding there.
Yeah, so Chris Collison held on to his position, and Sean Olivier has dropped a bit further back now. And we only have 7.5 minutes to run in this half-hour race. The race lead, Jean Ray is 0.8 of a second behind Gerrit. Maybe he's decided I can't catch him really. Let's see what Stanton's doing. Stanton's 1.7 seconds behind Sean Olivier. And we know that Sean Olivier is involved with Chris Collison, so keep an eye out for Stanton. The other gaps are nothing noteworthy except Sean Olivier, that half a second behind Chris Collison. So that might still become interesting. There's Stanton Augustus going across the finishing line now, behind Sean Olivier and the battle in front of him. So he might be two dogs fight over a bone, and the third one gets to run away with it. But certainly Chris Collison, that car is not at what I think he would like it to be. Now that turn going into the old pit straight is certainly, I haven't seen a pass being made there before, so that's barbecue. But it's Crowthorne, Yuxkay, barbecue. Those are the corners that I have to get used to the new names. Yeah, he's going to try again, but Chris Collison runs the middle of the road. That'll make him slow out of the corner, but he just drifts it wide in front of Sean Olivier. So but a clever bit of racecraft and doing everything within the rules. So didn't change direction, he just put the car in front of him and left it there. But yeah, there's a bit of a nudge. That's very early. He's gained position by doing the nudge. Is he going to give it back? Is there going to be a protest? We'll have to wait and see. We, of course, are not the judges of fact. We are not the stewards. So it's entirely up to the guys to put in the protest themselves. In this case, more than likely, there was a definite advantage obtained, especially if Chris Collison now has damage. But it looks as though Chris Collison is right there at him very quickly. So we'll have to wait and see what's left of this race. It's quite interesting for the minor placings.
And Stanton has been slowly reeling them in down to 1.2 seconds now. So as they're squabbling here, it's bringing Stanton into play.
Yes, and Stanton is one of those guys that's quite consistent in his lap times. So here's the race for first and second. It's back to 0.4 of a second again. So it might be their Sunset, then Clubhouse. No real chance of passing. I've seen passes done through Clubhouse, but they are not suicide maneuvers, but it's really a hit and hope sort of thing. The change of direction is so sudden that it's probably better waiting for the top of Leeuwkop and into the Crocodiles, the bottom of the mine shaft, rather than trying to venture a pass in the S's. Before the S's, Sunset and Clubhouse, those are not, in my opinion, the places to pass. Now coming up to back marker, that's Harvey Ghost. Just saw a brief flash. So that is there is blue in that car. So Harvey's still running strong. Of course, you can't miss him. Unlucky number 13. But Harvey's, I can guarantee you, he goes way off the line. He's going to probably stay out of the way of the race leaders. But they're not as close to him as I think he thought they were, or alternatively, he made a mistake right there, because he might be in their way at turn 1. The way things are going now, was Gerrit Beekers? No, Harvey stays out of the way. Yes, he does. Well done, Harvey. And well done to the race leaders to take the line offered by Harvey. and it's all done and dusted. And the gap is back to about 0.4 of a second between Gerrit Beekes and Jean-Ray du Toit, with 3.5 minutes plus to go.
Right, so 3.5 minutes plus to go. That's probably 2, maybe 3 laps, depending when they cross the line on the final lap.
Yeah, they're doing 143s, 144s at the moment. So if they are crossing that line with more than 144, they'll do that lap and one more. But it's the climb up to Leeuwkop with 3 minutes to go. So I think they might actually do 2 more laps. It'll be very close once again, as it was the previous time. But to be that close for so long, Jean-Ray du Toit must think, what can I do else differently, different positions on the circuit, different entries, different exits out of corners, to try and get Gerrit Beekes to make a mistake, or alternatively get my car quick enough in and out of a corner to be close enough to mount a challenge at Gerrit Beekes.
See, the gap comes right down once again at the end of the lap. And then the straight. Gerrit just pulls out a little bit of the gap.
Yeah, he seems to have it all under control, and then under the braking again, Jean-Ray closes right up again. So late in the race, 2 minutes 15 to go. So they definitely are going to do this lap and one more.
Down to 4 tenths, 3 tenths are dipped into there, so getting close.
Yep. And being this late in the race, it's a difficult decision to make. Do you go for the kamikaze move? I don't think the mentality of either of these drivers are to do that sort of thing. But Jean-Ray will be scheming, what can I do to get past Gerrit? Because he just doesn't seem to have the answer. Into clubhouse corner there, he's probably one tyre width away, but then as soon as he gets onto the throttle again, Gerrit Beekes pulls away. So the acceleration on Gerrit's car is really good. And the braking on Jean-Ray's car, then again, is really good. Here's one of the positions. If he'd been closer, I would have said at the top of the corner, a little bit of lockup, and the tail end stepping out there for Gerrit. So these are nervous times for Gerrit with Jean-Ray that close. It's 0.4 of a second. This is the second last lap. I reckon when they cross the finish line, it'll be, yes, it's less than a minute. It's about to break into the last minute, so they will do one more lap. A bit of lock up again from Gerrit going into the crocodiles, and he just seems to hold that car just nicely out of the crocodiles, where Jean-Ray puts 2 wheels on the dirt, which slows him down, which means Gerrit's going to have better momentum coming into the straight.
Right, so they will now be starting the final lap.
Yep. And Gerrit Beekes was half a second ahead. Let's see if Jean-Ray can close that down on braking like we are used to. Although a defensive line being run by Gerrit there into turn 1, so I think he thought that Jean-Ray was a lot closer, but the mistake made before they got into Ingwe, the last corner, I think that's had the effect of separating these two cars. It used to be 0.3 of a second, it's now 0.6. Still not much. Slight mistake, and Jean-Ray will be right there to pounce. Let's see what's happening further down. Everybody seems to be holding position. It's only this position, first and second, that is separated by less than half a second. All the others are 2 seconds and thereabouts and more. So no challenges being mounted. Stanton Augustus behind Chris Collison by 2 seconds. Chris Collison behind Sean Olivier by 3.8. And Sean Olivier behind Pieter Gelnys by 1.9. So this is first and second, and this is where the race is.
That was very close there.
Yeah, and certainly Gerrit went a little bit wide, leaving the door a little bit open, but then again, Jean-Ray wasn't close enough to put the car up on the inside. Is he going to go defensive? Yes, he does. But then lock up by Gerrit, but that also means that Jean-Ray has to take a little bit of evasive action to prevent running up the back end of Gerrit's car, and I think that'll be about it. Yeah, putting the 2 wheels on the dirt, that certainly is going to be it. My opinion, Gerrit Beekes from Jean-Ray du Toit for first and second.
Yes, as they come across the line, that's how it will finish. The race 2 victory for Gerrit Beekes. Jean-Ray du Toit is second place. Pieter Gelnys is currently in third place with Sean Olivier right behind him. A great result for Peter.
Oh, he's going to be quite chuffed with that, I can imagine. It's going to be interesting to see whether Chris Collison is just going to say, leave that be, it's a racing incident, it's only one position, it's 2 points. The incident that they did have, but nonetheless, yeah, they come across the line now. Peter Geldenhuys, Sean Olivier, Chris Collison in 5th, Stanton Augustus behind him in 6th. Morne de Plooy was actually a lot closer than what we thought here at the end. It was a 2nd. So had it run another lap or 2, it could have been very different.
Yeah. I think like in race 1, he worked his way up, and at the end started catching, gaining, ended up in 6th place. Not quite. I thought at the start he looked like he'd do better, but didn't quite pan out that way.
Marius van Wyk was a long way back. He's still coming to finish the final lap, and that'll be for 8th position.
And the last driver that will be on the final lap will be Harvey Goos.
That was Harvey back.
Actually, Harvey's back in the pits by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think he actually went across once the flag had dropped already. So he had been lapped effectively. So Harvey Goos finishing in 9th and Arjan Belder in 10th. DNFs for Andre Hildebrand, Wessel, and for Jandre Dippenaar.
We're going to catch the drivers for the podiums, and we'll be back shortly after an ad break. So be back with you in a moment. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the conclusion of the Weldmech Porsche Supercup Round 3 from Kyalami Grand Prix Circuit in Midrand, Gauteng, South Africa. We are now joined by our top 3 drivers for the round, which are in first place, Gerrit Beerkes, in second place, Jean-Andre de Toy, and in third place overall, Sean Olivier. Let's start with Gerrit. Gerrit, a great race. I think this is the first time you've been challenged right to the end. So in race 2, you had Jean-Andre for company right till the end, and I think on the last lap you both locked up in the final sector there. If it wasn't for that, I think possibly Jean-Andre could have maybe had a lunge into the final turn. It must have been a different challenge for you actually having someone on your tail pretty much the whole race. How was the race 1 for you compared to race 2?
Yeah, that was actually a lot of fun. Race 1, I saw Janneman and Jean-Ray, they were having a battle, so that gave me a little bit of breathing room and allowed me to escape a little bit. And that was just basically doing lap times, just trying to keep the tires cool. So yeah, and then the second race, I don't know, I couldn't shake that green car. It was all over me, and I was pushing. And then at the end, the tires were knackered, and he was really fast. So on the last lap, I had to go really defensive because he had more grip than me. I could see, and well done to him. He got on top of that car, and it showed in the second race.
Great stuff. Jean-Andre, you definitely got on top of the car in race 2. Unfortunately, just running out of time, but you were very, very threatening towards the end there. I think maybe if there was another lap, you might have got the position, but a great show of improvement. I mean, you've been complaining about these cars. You haven't been up there at the front towards the end of some of the races. What a change. Is it driving style? Is it setup? Are you starting, you were saying you're not too familiar with doing car setups. Are you starting to get on top of the car? What made the difference?
Yeah, every week when I start to change a couple of stuff on the car, I realize what the car actually wants me to do with it. So it usually takes me a couple of weeks to just figure it out. And with the first race, I was really struggling with the rear end. So the second race, I just lifted the wing a bit just to get a bit more grip, and it made a ton of difference. I could actually keep up with Gerrit the whole time. And yeah, within the last lap or so, I kind of wanted to dive from the inside because I knew that was my only chance to really pass him. But yeah, I think it was a good race. Being within a second for him the entire half an hour was good.
Yeah, it was a good race from you. Well done. Sean, also a good race from you. Both races, great races. We saw a nice big battle between yourself and Chris Collison. At one point, you both locked up and you ended up going off because he'd locked up and was sliding and you were on the outside. You were probably going to go around the outside of him if you didn't lock up. But yeah, a great result, ending up third overall. How was the race from your point of view?
It was difficult. Chris was driving very defensive. But yeah, well done to him. He gave me a run for my money. But yeah, there's no way I will catch guys in front. But other than that, it was a lucky race.
Well, I must say, your pace was pretty good. I think if you were maybe closer at the start, or maybe you've had a better lap in qualifying, you might have been able to challenge a bit easier. Yourself and even Monet was starting to catch towards the end of the race, and it looked like the same with you. You guys seem to be faster towards the end relative to the start. Is your setup perhaps working better at the end of the race rather with lower fuel maybe than with heavier fuel?
No, I think I was quite slower at the end of the race. My tires went off. Maybe the times were quicker, I don't know, but for me, it felt much slower at the end of the race.
Anyway, great result. At least you got third overall once again. So solid performance.
Thank you.
And then perhaps, Sean, if you'd like to ask a final question to maybe Gerrit?
Well, I'm just going to answer Sean's question, just to give a bit of useless information. Gerrit, your fastest lap in race 1 was a 43.3. Your fastest lap in race 2 was a 42.4. That's 0.9 of a second quicker. Then to see Jean-Ray, your fastest lap in race 1 was a 43.4, if we round it off. And in the second race, a 42.7. So also a big improvement. And Sean, you got a 43.4 and you got a 43.4. So you were consistent across both races. So great stuff. And for us, what a pleasure commentating on a race that went right down to the checkered flag for the first and second position. We've had a lot of fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Then final question I'll ask into Gerrit. Gerrit, you've pretty much had this championship to your own until tonight. So it's good to see that the challenge is coming. Jean-Andre is definitely starting to get on top of the car. Are you worried for Silverstone?
To be honest, yeah, because I knew as soon as that green car gets on top of its setup, he's going to be close. And yeah, seems like he's getting the hang of it now.
Great stuff. And congratulations, and we'll see you guys at the next one. I'm going to throw you guys out of here now. We can say our goodbyes. So thank you very much, and we'll catch you all next week.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
All right. So, Sean, a very, very close end of the round. And thankfully, it's the challenge is coming from Jean-Andre. So we are expecting a much closer event in the next one, which, of course, will be Silverstone. So catch us next week for the Silverstone round. Of course, we'll have 2 races, race 1 and race 2 there, same time as tonight. I think that could also be a slightly different challenge. The nature of the track is slightly different. I think these cars may be harder in direction change because of the weight of the cars. Lots of direction change there, high-speed direction change, obviously with Maggots, Beckett's, Chapel. So that could be a different kettle of fish when we go there.
Yes, I'm actually just looking at the circuit layout. They've got the loop is not actually a hairpin, but almost. Then Luffield is a hairpin, and it carries on forever. But as you said, they come out of Cops, Maggots, Chapel Curve. Then they've got a bit of rest for the Hanger Straight, but then it's Stowe Vale Club. So a lot of direction changes in Silverstone. So it's going to be interesting to see how the guys are going to get to handle that. And for half an hour, we've seen Kyalami, which is, I don't think, as tight as what Silverstone is. Although Silverstone is also quite a long circuit. It's 5.9 kilometers almost, but with a lot more corners and a lot of the corners a lot tighter than Kyalami. So I think tyre wear is probably going to be more of a factor towards the end of the race than what it was today.
Indeed. So we'll have to wait until next week to find out. So until then, hopefully everyone has a great week, and remember to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed what you're watching and would like to see some more. And until then, have a great week, and we'll catch you then.
Cheers, everybody. Good night.